Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is so good. And before we jump in, I have some exciting news to share. If you've ever wondered where you're blocking money, this is for you. I've created a free quiz to diagnose your money wounds so you can heal them and unblock yourself to receive more money. Just go to moneywoundsquiz.com and answer 6 quick questions to get your insanely accurate and potent result. And if you're loving my vibe and want to work one-on-one to call in more feminine energy wealth, I would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a DM on social media or go to emilywilcox.com to learn more. Hello, and welcome back to the M Makes Money Show. I'm so thrilled because I am joined here today by the gorgeous Kate Decker, who is an intuitive business and success coach. She leads women in designing their life and business through desire, intuition, and full embodiment to create limitless abundance. She is a manifestation queen, quantum leap expert, and a food junkie. She runs live and automated programs, masterminds, and in-person retreats, and she loves utilizing simple but efficient practices for business growth and integrating joy as a foundation for sustainable growth. That is my kind of woman. Kate, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So you and I run in a lot of the same audiences, and I love connecting with other women entrepreneurs that are building wealth, but really integrating the feminine energy, right? Really integrating the intuition, the joy. How do you actually feel in your business while you're building it? So have you always been into that stuff, or did you kind of have to learn the hard way that the masculine hustle culture wasn't for you?
So yes and no. So when I started my business, I actually started happiness coaching because I was so deeply unhappy and I was so bitter, so burnt out, so just like tired from my life and existing and everyone. So when I started coaching, that was the first thing. I was like, okay, I need to lean into the joy and the feminine and the feelings. And I was really working more on myself than helping other people. I was like doing me first. Yeah. So then when I pivoted into like the business coaching and the intuitive coaching, it was already that was already the foundation on top of that.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. And that is, I think, one of the unique things about coaching too, is that it's like we go first, and it's like the places where we're able to transform ourselves end up being the really powerful places where we're able to help our clients.
100%. Yeah. I was talking to my husband the other day and I was like, I think I'm into coaching not only, but a lot, just because I just want to have the opportunity and the excuse to work on myself constantly, because that's really what it is.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I think sometimes there's this misconception that we're like coaching from this exalted place, like where we have these things all figured out. But it's like, the truth is, anything that I'm like coaching clients on, I feel like there's also something in it for me as well.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something that I've already processed once, or a code that I feel like I've cracked, but because it's coming up for one of my clients, it like gives me another opportunity to look at it and see, like, is there a deeper layer of embodiment now?
100%. And I just love those moments when some clients hire me for business. They're like, all right, we need to grow the business. And then the conversations that we have are about things that they would never admit before, like their relationships, or they're going through something really hard and they don't know how to navigate the business. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been through this, and weirdly makes me happy. I'm like, I can help you. We didn't even know about each other that we went through it. It's just the connections are so beautiful and powerful how that works.
Totally. Because it's like this idea that we can compartmentalize and, I'm going to hire you as a money coach. And it's like, haha, yes. But that's just because money is the beautiful carrot that we're using to then dive into the inner work, which we may talk very little about money for a while because we're really talking about self-worth, or we're talking about, feelings of deservingness, or fear of failure, or fear of success, or whatever the thing might be. But it's like the feminine energy is like, we get to sort of heal it all in parallel. And it's like for this omni benefit where there's more money, but there's also more joy and everything else.
100% agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like anyone who has been an entrepreneur for a while, I feel has gone through their own money stories and had to really like work on their own money beliefs. And so can you just talk me through like what some of that looked like for you?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be really good to hear for anyone who doesn't know me at all. So I'll make it brief, but when I was growing up, I was in a family, like growing up in a family that just didn't have a lot of money and very much went with the belief of, well, you're born to this family, this is the circle that you have of money, and that's just kind of it. Like you cannot break through and break free. They would always like make fun of me because I was like, when I was little, I was like, I'm gonna be so rich, I'm gonna be so wealthy, like I just know it. And I'd be like, yeah, you're just like keep dreaming, right? A kid. So then when I became an adult, I started obviously the whole entrepreneurship journey and all of that stuff. And there was a lot of things that I just didn't even understand money. So I treated money as monopoly money, and I ended up completely actually sort of bankrupt. I had to have my parents help me financially to fix something so that I don't get into a lot of trouble. And then I moved to the US to just kind of take a year off of everything, everyone, get my life together in terms of who do I actually want to be. And long story short, I ended up getting married, staying here even though I didn't plan on it. And I started a coaching business. And when I started a coaching business, other money things started coming up. Like, who do you think you are to like even want this, right? Like I would sit down with my husband and I would tell him like, hey, I don't know why, but I've always had this feeling I'm going to be a millionaire. And I don't know how, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just want you to know that this is the journey that I'm on. And he would be looking at me like if I just fell off a tree. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, how are you going to be a millionaire? Like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. And I started writing a list of things that I could do. That was even before actually I started coaching. And I was like, I don't know. I can sell things online. I can do things on Pinterest. Like, I'm just going to figure something out. And eventually the coaching thing came about when I even found out that coaching is a thing, that I could be a coach. And then I actually, one of the first coaches that I hired was Melanie and Lair. And at that time, I was making $400 in my coaching per month. And I paid $35,000 in full for working with her. The first call that I had with her, I realized I spent a lot of money and I have absolutely nothing to build on. So with the money things, there was also a lot of pressure then to like, now I need to make the money. Like I spent so much money. I took out a loan for this. Like I trust my intuition, but I also like, this is insane. This is crazy. So that was the like, I need the money. So like working through the process of like the neediness and like clinginess to like every dollar and then being like, no, I'm okay. Like this is fine. Like that was a lot of work to go through there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I think that you bring up a really important point. It's something that has been on my mind a lot recently as well, because there is a lot of talk in the coaching industry, and it's not just talk. There's actually a lot of action like yours, which is I'm going to spend ahead of what I'm making. Like I'm going to invest, and then I'm going to become the type of person who makes that investment. Mm-hmm. And I did the same thing, right? Like I committed to $120,000 coaching investment with the same coach at a time when, you know, my coaching business was brand new. I had made like $12,000 total, like lifetime in coaching. And I think sometimes people get that twisted and they think that it means that if I spend the money, then I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
But I want you to talk more about what this transformation really was, because it was you. What I'm hearing from what you're saying is you learned how to regulate your nervous system and like become the woman who made the $36,000 investment. But like you really had to lead yourself through those moments where it was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm crazy. I just took out this loan. Now I have all this debt. My business is so small.
Yeah, 100%. So I think I agree with everything that you said. And I don't think these types of investments are for everyone. And I don't think they're necessary or required for success. But at the point already of investing, I was so convicted that like, I don't care how long it's going to take me to make it back. I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to get what I need out of this. Yeah. I just felt like that pull. So when the money pressure came, it was like, it was just normal that it was there. But because I remember that before I even made that decision, I was already in the place of knowing I don't care how long this takes. Like, I will be okay. I will be safe. So that when those moments came up, yes, I like learned how to regulate myself. And I talked about it with, you know, with Melanie, with my coach. And I was like, I am freaking out because we're coming up to the end of our term together. And it was for 6 months of coaching. And at the end of 6 months, my highest one was 2,500, right? Like, I didn't break through very quickly. The first year of that coaching, I made $42,000 and I invested about 60. So it was insane. And my husband, oh my gosh, I love him so much. And I don't know how he trusts me so much, but he would be freaking out double. And he would be like, this is crazy. This is not sustainable. Like, are you insane? You're going to drive us bankrupt. So I have to work through my stuff and I have to be like really strong for me and then like work with him and like just essentially like be the strong energy, not trying to convince or explain, but be like, I know what I'm doing. I don't know, but I know.
Yeah.
And so like, there was a lot of that. And then I got to the end of the 6 months with Melanie. And I was like, well, I didn't die, so I'm good. I also didn't make a 10K a month, and I'm okay. Yeah. So now what? And I actually made the choice to invest with her again. I paid monthly at that point, which was insane. But it's because of those little steps of who I was becoming, of all of the work that I did in between. And I think this is so important. Like, I was really listening to every call. Like, I would be recording our calls sometimes and I'd be like replaying them. Like, what did she say? How did she say it? Okay. How does she talk? I was just like so doing the work that the second year of my coaching, I made $205,000. So from 42 to 200, people are like, oh, that's insane. That's so cool. And I'm like, but I did the work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes, you did. You did the work. And in all of those moments where it felt like it wasn't working, where there was no evidence of it yet, where your spouse was like, you're a crazy person, like, you were able to hold the belief and the faith. And that's why you quantum leaped. And so, you know, you kind of mentioned like, I don't believe it's necessary. And I agree. I don't think you have to make these huge financial moves first. However, I think if you want to quantum leap, which you also don't have to do, but that is what a quantum leap is it saying, we're on this timeline. We want to be this person that's on this other timeline. How quickly can I collapse the two? And it's like, you basically made the investment as though you were the person on this other timeline that had a $200,000 business. And so it took you 2 years instead of, it maybe would have taken, who knows, 5. Maybe you never even get there. Not everybody has a business that makes it.
Oh, 100%. And I do want to add to that is I just don't think everyone is the type of person who even wants that. And I think sometimes because we see a lot of people making these investments and we're like, oh, wow, that's so bold. We don't check in like, do I want that? Or am I ready for that? Like, I think the reason why I was able to hold that energy for those 2 years was because I was like, I'm going to be this person, like, no matter what, no matter how long it takes. And even though it was hard at times, I always came back to that because like that was already part of me.
Yes. Yeah. And you made the decision based like in alignment with your inner authority, not because someone else did it. And so you thought it was a good idea. Oh my gosh. So you already had a partner that thought you were crazy while you were making those investments and like getting your business off the ground. Did you talk to your family? Like, did you tell them about the moves that you were making at that time? Because it sounds like maybe they already really had some limiting beliefs around money.
Yeah, so I think for me it's slightly different because I do live on a different continent than my family. So when we do talk, we usually talk about like the fun stuff and like memories, and we make it very, very intentional. So not always like these conversations have even like, they just don't come up as much. They do know that I'm still me. They do know I'm still crazy. And they do also know that we're doing financially very well, because obviously like I was able to, like this last summer, we went to see them after 3 years. So I was able to like pay a vacation for all of us and like take them to the spa town. And it was just like so great. So like, I feel like me not being there, but them seeing me from a distance succeeding is already helping them feeling better and more positive about money and like how it can work. So those are things that kind of like just come up, or, you know, like we had this moment when we were in a restaurant and my parents felt very uncomfortable to ask the waiter to split the check, because it's not a very common thing in Europe, and it can be uncomfortable. And I was just like, you've got to ask for what you want. Like, this person is going to get paid no matter what. So, you know, like it comes up in different ways of them being like, this is making me very uncomfortable, but okay, we're going to listen to you, you know? But from my husband's family, since they do live closer, I had a couple of funny things. Like when I hit my first 29K cash month, I obviously celebrated on Facebook. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. This is incredible. Like, oh my gosh. And not like a few hours later, my husband gets a call from his father telling my husband that I really shouldn't be talking about money on Facebook, even though my husband doesn't have a Facebook. My father-in-law doesn't have Facebook. So it was like their neighbor told them celebratory thing. And then he was like calling to tell my husband to tell me that I really shouldn't be talking about money on Facebook because it's like unprofessional and not cool. And I shouldn't be doing it because it's really dumb. And I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. Which is also like our worst nightmare when we really do start showing up and talking about business on social media.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully you had healed enough at that point that you were able to just kind of laugh it off. Yeah. At least for me, like when I started talking about money on Facebook, especially Facebook, Instagram, not so much, but like Facebook, I feel like is where all the family and all the, you know, old childhood friends and that kind of thing. And it's like,
yeah,
oh my God, am I really going to talk to them about money?
Yeah.
And you imagine the exact same scenario that you basically went through, which is having your father-in-law call you up and like scold you.
Yeah. And I was very fortunate that at that point I was like very much like through those fears. So I was like, it's his projection. He's probably uncomfortable about the whole situation. Me probably making more money in a month than he is, even though he like did, you know, all of the steps that you're supposed to do in life. And it's just not worth it. Was like, I didn't even have a conversation with him. It was just like, thanks. I know you're probably coming from some sort of good space, but I cannot take advice from someone who's not in the space. And I definitely have had like, so because my husband is in the military, we move a lot, which means I meet a new group of people that are not entrepreneurs often. And I have seen a lot of people just not talk to me or unfriend me or like not invite me to things because I talk about business, because I talk about money. And that was also hard when I was like here alone, trying to be a nice person. And then feeling rejected because of what's my work and how I do it. But it's just not worth the compromising myself for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That does feel tough and like isolating, because I know that in the military spouse community, like it can be very tight knit, but the common paradigm is the wives stay at home with the kids and are not income producing, or maybe they're doing like some network marketing thing, but they're not making bank as a business coach. That's not super common.
It's not very common, but I will say I'm very fortunate. I feel like since I shifted from the energy of, it's like the same thing. I shifted from the needing the money to just like playing with it, from the needing the friends and people liking me, and to like, you know what, I'll be fine. I have such an incredible group of friends who are very supportive, very understanding. A lot of them are very entrepreneurial. So
Yeah.
even that happens in the military.
I love that. Totally. And I see a lot of women like having beliefs around that, like who's in their community. And that's something that I've challenged a lot of people on is like, call it in. If you think you can manifest money, if you think you can manifest other things, I'm telling you, you can also manifest local friends that are amazing and that get you and that want to talk about money or want to do the woo-woo stuff, you know,
Yeah.
want to do a full moon ritual.
Yes, I love that.
And then I've had people come back to me and they're like, you're right. Guess who I made a friend with?
Yeah, they all come out of the blue and you're like, whoa, where are you this whole time? It's wild.
Yeah, I love that. I really do, particularly because I feel like as women, when we do feel supported, you know, by our network and by our friendships, it really helps amplify our business results as well.
100%.
Yeah. So what's like a normal cash month for you at this point?
So it can range anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000, depending really. I think it's hard for me to answer that question. Last year was very all over the place.
Yeah.
Because I was also changing a lot of things and I love experimenting. So because I had that like 200K year, which I built a certain way, I was like, I want to experiment. So that would be kind of the range. I would say the average is between 15 to 20 as like a non-negotiable. And then there are a couple of higher months.
Yeah. I love that. And it's something that Melanie talks about too, which is like, she wants to discover how many different ways she can make $1 million. And so like, I love that you're playing in your business because I do think that some of the old masculine paradigm can still like infiltrate our minds and our belief systems, right? And so there's this feeling of like, well, now I've figured out how to do it. So I have to, if I want this outcome, I have to keep doing it this way.
100%.
And then for some of us, then we start to feel really bored or resentful or.
Yes. Like at the beginning of last year, I was like so bored. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm so bored. I'm not lit up by this. I don't like, do I want to even continue or do I not? And it was just so weird because obviously I had a lot of things going on and I loved the things I had going on, but at the same time, like it wasn't fun. So then from there, I just started playing with the different ways of like, well, can I do it if I only work maybe 2 hours a day, right? Or like, can I do this? Or if I'm selling super low cost things or high cost thing, because I also want to be the example for my clients that like literally any way is possible. So yeah, definitely not bored here anymore.
I love that. And I love that you gave yourself the permission. And, you know, you were kind of mentioning before we hit record that you had a little story around making slightly less money in your business last year than the year prior. And I'd love for us to just talk about that because it's amazing how when we start talking about money and we start sharing and celebrating milestones, it's like the fear never goes away and it just turns into this whole other thing of like, oh my God, but now that I celebrated my first 29K month, I can't ever celebrate anything less than that publicly because it will look like I am not being successful anymore.
Yes, that was really hard. The first like part of last year for me, like I was okay with it for myself because I understood what was happening. I understood that I wasn't taking as many clients on purpose. At some point, I closed off my private coaching for a couple of months because I was like, I don't know if I'm lit up by this. Like, I need to shift something, right? But there was this huge fear of like, what if people find out and like they're gonna think I'm a failure? And it was really hard to go through that because I constantly, like for a couple of months at the beginning of last year was really hard for me in a lot of ways. And I just felt like I'm failing. And I was like, I'm just failing. I'm constantly failing, even though I had like an 18K month. Right. And I'm like, I feel like a freaking failure. Like, this is like not good. And then, of course, I had like a low cash month. So last year, there was 1 month when I had a $5,000 month. And I was like, what's going on? Right. And then that was the moment when I was like, I just need to own who I am and what I'm building and how I'm building it. And so I made some changes. I hired a different coach because it was more like, not that I needed the coach, but I was like, I know it's for me. This investment is just like for me to be like, we're doing this. And it went back up in all kinds of different ways. And even though at the end of the year, it ended up being a little bit less than the year before, I just feel so much stronger and so much more stable in the ways that I was doing it. Like, honestly, the year that I made 200K, I don't even know how. It was so chaotic. There was like no system to anything. It was not sustainable to my nervous system. I definitely a couple times went like over my capacity, and then I would like be a little burned out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm also a projector in human design, if anyone's into human design. And so that was just a lot. So last year just felt like I can breathe. I can do this. This is sustainable. Like, genuinely, if I was just doing the same-ish thing, I would be like, okay, I could have a family. I could have friendships. Like, I could have kids. I don't have kids yet, but I just like started creating that like mental and physical space. And then I started working more on my own health and just all of these things. I'm like, yeah, at the end of the year, it was a little bit less, but my life got better. And now I can have like both and build this up because I have the capacity for that.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I'm so glad that we're talking about it, because it often is those things that we're so afraid to talk about, where we've created this weird story around it that leads to, you know, our failure and demise and no one ever hiring us again. And it's like, when we actually share it, it turns out to be like such a permission slip. And it actually magnetizes the right clients to us. Like, I would imagine that you've probably gotten new clients that want to learn how to better align themselves in their business and want to feel like their business is more sustainable, want to like recapture the joy and not feel bored. And it's like, if you hadn't shared that story, they wouldn't have found you. And you sharing like financial wins or whatever, like that wasn't going to do it. Because that's not the thing that those clients were looking for. Of course, they want the money, but it's like, how are you making the money?
100%. And I think the insane moment for me was when my clients towards the last year asked me in a mastermind call, and they were like, I was celebrating a milestone. I was like, what is the milestone? And I told them, and they were so excited, and they didn't think twice. What if it was a few $1,000s less or more, right? And I was just like, right. Like, they don't care. So
I'm glad you said that, because that brings up an interesting point too, which, you know, in the work that I do around money, what I'm constantly noticing and what this conversation is bringing up to me is there are so many places where we diminish money, where we decide that it's not worthy of celebration. And this one that you brought up is really important. And it's one that I haven't talked about before or really thought about, which is the money that's less than the money that we made before. Well, who decided that that's not worthy of celebration? Yeah. And do we think that by not celebrating it, then money is going to be like, oh, okay, let me just bring more of my friends to you so that now you'll celebrate.
Exactly. And like, that's what I was like at the beginning of this year, I was going through my like journal entries and stuff like that. And when I was like, you know, writing things, and I would just like notice this theme of the first half of that year, just like feeling ashamed, feeling so bad, feeling ashamed, the income just kind of like very just dwindling or going down. And I'd be like, well, go figure. Like, I don't even understand how was it, like, why was I feeling so bad? And of course, this is what was happening. And then there was a very clear path when I just decided that I want everything to feel like a miracle again. Because like, that's really what it is at the beginning. Like when I had my first 15K month, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Even when I had my first 2,500 month, like that month, I was like, oh my God, money, right? And I'm like, I just want that. Like, I want that. And it doesn't matter how much like it is, or if it's more or less, like, I just want to feel that magic. And I really made it intentional, and like, go figure, things are working like significantly better, right? Different, exponentially better.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. This right here feels like a huge money key, which is like just allowing ourselves to celebrate all of it and allowing ourselves to like lean into the part of it that is miraculous, whether or not it's a new record or if it's just feeling really good about each little piece of it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So it must have been so incredible to be able to like buy your family an entire vacation. Like, did that just feel like the most abundant thing in the world?
Oh my gosh, it felt so wild. Like, it felt so good. Not only buying the vacation, but the whole process of like, where do we want to go, and realizing like, oh, like we can do anything. Like, I can choose whatever I want here for us. And I was like literally choosing not based on how much money it was, but like, what do we want to do? And there's this spa town essentially in the Czech Republic where I'm from. And I was like, we're going to go there because it's beautiful and it's just like so perfect. And I was like, literally like, do we want to stay in this castle or do we want to stay here? Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like wild. We didn't end up staying in the castle because they didn't have good spa services, and we preferred a spa. So we stayed in like another super bougie hotel, and like I got them like a beautiful room, and it was just like all royal, and they were like so excited. Also, my dad was like freaked out a little bit, but I was like, that it's all right. Like, you can enjoy it, you can have fun. But yeah, it felt so fun. And I just love, my mom is such a great receiver when it comes to like gifts and surprises. So when I told them, she like totally freaked out, started squealing like a little girl, and I'm like, oh, this feels so good. So
oh my gosh,
it's just so beautiful.
That's so incredible. So they must be so proud of you and everything that you've built.
Yeah, I think
and then
so.
that you get to share it with them. That's amazing. What are some of your favorite little exercises, rituals, anything that you do just to like be in relationship with money and call more of it in?
Mm-hmm. So I think honestly, I like everything simple, as like in my business and my teaching. So my favorite thing is always just playing with what if it does work? What if something happens? Like, what if someone comes out of the blue and wants to hire me today? What if someone pays in full? What if someone this? What if this? So I just like play with all of these possibilities and all of these like different crazy scenarios. And it just gets me so hyped up that I'm like, it doesn't matter what happens, I'm already super happy.
Yeah.
And the one connected with that is just a sentence that I repeat a lot to all of my clients is, just because I don't know if it's possible, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. And there's just so much in that. And like every single time that I remember, like, just because I don't know if this could happen doesn't mean that it couldn't. And it's just such a playful little exercise. So
yes, so much.
Right.
I love that exercise so much because it does put us like in playful co-creation. And it's not like the sort of old masculine business principles of like, okay, Kate, do math. Like, you know, you want to make this much? Okay, well, how many clients do you need to bring in at this much per client? Which,
like, literally, you've been saying it jokingly. My heart is like, no, I can't.
Yeah, it just feels so bad. Like, it feels constrictive instead of expansive.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like the what if game has gotten you this far, and who knows where it will take you over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, like
Yeah.
probably beyond anything that you can even vision into.
I'm so excited. I'm literally getting so giddy as a child because it is like, even today, okay, maybe I'm weird, but I was driving from the gym in the car and there was like a song. I don't even know. I think it was the One Step in Front of the Other or something, just started playing. And I was like crying. I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. I've come in life.
Yeah.
Because it's so wild. Like I could not have imagined like, and it's both like, yes, the business and the money, but like everything that comes with that. Like even now we're getting ready for another military move and we're like looking at these like huge houses and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like literally never thought I would live in such a big house. And especially like now before we even need it or before we have kids, just because we really love space. And it's insane to me.
Oh, that's so amazing. I love it. Along your journey to wealth, did you have to heal any parts of you that felt like you weren't worthy of it?
I mean, 100%. I did hire multiple coaches for healing specifically. I think the very first one was actually even before I hired Melanie. I hired a mentor to just kind of help me to work through some like trauma with like my family and like the trust and like the trust to being happy, which isn't necessarily connected to money, but like allowing myself to be that and to feel whole. And then the second one was really about like being comfortable being seen and not waiting for like other people to essentially like tell me what to do, like not looking around like who's their authority, what's the right thing to do, and instead like trusting myself and like voicing that over, which obviously like reflected to money, because once I was able to just be me, it magnetized people, right? When I was able to like be okay with being seen and speaking up and saying things, it's like it magnetized people. But I just had such a like a little girl energy around that, because when I was a kid, I would, as a projector, I just see things differently. I wanted to help people, and I would be like trying to give my parents advice as a child, which I think was still a good advice, but they were like, no, the adults are talking, right? And I don't blame them, but I just carried that energy with me of like, no, the adults are talking, so I'm like not adults. I'm just gonna wait for what the more successful coaches say, and then I'm gonna see what I'm gonna say. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like that energy was the biggest hurdle, I would say, in terms of that.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah. And what about, were there any beliefs to clean up around like trusting yourself with money or trusting money?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you're like digging it out of me. I love it. I don't even like probably remember on regular basis, but yes. So the first thing is that I would be very emotional spender. So when I still lived in the Czech Republic, like all the money that I would make, I would spend, I would immediately go spend it on Starbucks, on new clothes and things, because I quote unquote deserve it. So it was like, I deserve this. Like I deserve this treat. And then I would be like almost not able to pay my rent. So I would just like overspend. So I really had to retrain myself to trust myself, that the purchases that I'm making are intentional, that I am actually thinking it through in the long term, that I feel that I'm asking myself like, okay, if I kind of like look down the path, how would it feel to have done this? Like, am I going to be proud of this purchase, or am I just spending this because it makes me feel good for a moment? Right?
Yeah.
So that was huge. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I totally forgot about that one. And what helped me with that was having like a money system that allowed me to kind of like know what can I spend on the fun stuff and what I'm going to spend on some different things. So that was one. And then the second one was definitely the inner sense of safety. So that's where I did a lot of the embodiment and somatic embodiment work, because it would literally, like money would feel unsafe, right? And that was also probably a root of why I was spending it so quickly, because it just didn't feel safe to hold it. Yeah. So I would be a lot of lot of breathing, a lot of like handing, hand on my heart and just like feeling being with the money. And the things that I would do were literally like meditating with $100 bill, closing my eyes and like putting it in front of me. Like I felt so unsafe that the money is just gonna like disappear if I close my eyes. And that was a very somatic experience, even though that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like the windows were closed, like no one could have come, like nothing logically, but it was such a fear. So I did a lot of that, like breathing and reminding myself that I'm safe and just like slowly, gradually kind of tapping back into that. Yeah.
I love this so much. I'm so glad we're speaking to it because I'll tell you, like, I've worked with clients that, have this unhealed. And it's like, yeah, I had $200,000 in the bank and now there's 15. And, it's like, it's the same pattern that repeats. And the only thing that changes is the magnitude, depending on how much money we have. And so it's like, I love that you were able to recognize it and really say like, it doesn't feel safe to have money. And, you grew up without enough. And I think often it's like the default is I actually feel better not having anything.
Yeah, because I know this.
Yeah. It's like the conscious mind doesn't like it. The conscious mind is like, no, I want money. But the subconscious is like, but I feel safe and cozy with no money because I know what that's like.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's definitely a work that I'm still doing and like still getting comfortable with. Like, I don't think I am completely healed with that because I still catch myself sometimes like wanting to do something and I'm like, wait, do I want? So I still need to bring the very conscious mind of questioning my purchases and stuff like that. And I think it's a good thing to have that, the questioning.
Totally. The good thing about money is that we have so many opportunities where we transact with it that it is just bringing a noticing and our awareness to it and understanding like what our money wounds are so that you can check in and be like, am I making this decision like in my sovereignty or is the old money wound like running the show? Yeah. And I kind of have the opposite. I have what I call a safe money wound. And so I have to challenge myself to spend the money because like I can just get in the mode of like, oh, I don't want to spend the $30 to upgrade to the exit row. Like I'm fine. And it's like,
yeah,
$30 damn dollars. Like, what does it matter? You're not even going to notice that the $30 is gone, but it's like, it's the little girl that doesn't feel safe with the money leaving. And so for me, it's checking in with my sovereignty and really stretching myself to allow money to circulate. And for you, it's sort of the opposite, but it's like, it's just two sides of the same coin,
And the funniest thing that you said that my husband is actually kind of like you in that. So that polarity of him wanting to save everything and not get the good stuff and me being like, no, I think we kind of thought like it took us a while to find some sort of like understanding, but it was very interesting because I totally didn't understand that. I was like, what are you doing sitting on your money? Like it's not like he wouldn't even upgrade his like clothes. I'm like, this clothes doesn't even fit you. Like, why is it 5 sizes too big on you? And like, why did you have this? Like, you've had this since high school. Like, come on.
Oh my God. Yep. And, and my husband and I have a similar dynamic, right? Just in reverse. But I think this is really common in marriages and in partnerships because it's like the part of me that wanted to feel more free with money was attracted to that in my husband. And probably the part of him that wanted to feel more safe with money was attracted to that in me. Right. And it's like the same thing with you and your husband. But then once you're in the marriage, it's like doing the work of actually understanding each other and doing our own inner work to own it. Because I projected all kinds of irresponsibility onto my husband. I was like, oh my God, if I'm not in charge of the money, he's just going to spend it all. Like it's all going to be gone and we're not going to have a roof over our head. And like, I had all of these stories when it's like, really, I actually wanted to feel more free with my money. And that was part of why we were compatible.
Yeah.
So
it just reminds me a lot of our conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, once you can get to a healthy place where it's like, okay, he brings a little bit more of the safety and stability and you bring the fun, and you guys find a happy medium and you challenge each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Then it all works.
It's all great now.
Yeah. Oh, this is so fun. I didn't expect the conversation to go there, but I think it's going to help a lot of people listening, because we are naturally attracted to, like our, I don't want to say opposite, but just to a person that offers something that we're not accessing in our own lives.
Yeah. So, something that we desire and we don't have yet.
Exactly. Yeah. So this will be fun. I'm expecting, if you're listening to this and you're resonating, you've got to take a screenshot of you listening, tag Kate and I in social media, and tell us what's landing for you. And that brings me actually to my next point, which is that I know, Kate, that people who have been listening are going to want to follow along with you and your story and see what you're up to. So where do you like to hang out on the internet? What are the best places for people to find you?
Yeah, so I think my favorite place right now is Instagram. My Instagram is right now at Decker Coaching. It may be changing soon, though. So if people cannot find me, just try to type in Kate Decker. And then also on Facebook, Kate Decker. I'll be there, Kate Decker, and I have a Facebook group, which I love, and that's where I host a lot of my free trainings and stuff like that. So it's all going to be linked, but the names, it's so funny. I'm actually on the verge of a secret change.
You're like rebranding everything.
Which I didn't even announce to my audience, so now I'm like, oops. But that's all right. It's going to be, I think, announced by the time that this goes out. So this is happening. Yeah.
Amazing. Fun. Yeah. So we'll make sure that the links are in the show notes so that people can find you and make their way into your social media audience and maybe into your group if they're feeling drawn to it as well. And before we wrap the show, any last piece of advice to anybody listening to this?
Yeah. So before that, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. This has been incredible fun. I just love it. My cheeks are literally hurting from all the laughing. I think my best piece of advice is, if you feel some crazy thing like you're meant to be a millionaire, just play with it, follow it, take it step by step. You don't have to take crazy steps. It doesn't have to be a crazy step. It could be just literally step by step, but go with it. You never know what you're going to discover.
Yes, I love that. And it's like that little girl in you that wanted to be a millionaire, like she's still here. And yeah. I love that you haven't lost that playfulness and that dreamer. It's so evident in your energy. So thank you for sharing that with us today. It's been such a joy to have you on the show. And to everyone listening, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Changing the way we think, feel, and talk about money will change the world. I truly believe that. It starts with you tuning in, and it spreads when you share this show on Instagram and Facebook and tag me at mmakesmoney. And you know what moves the needle the most? Taking just a minute to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This show isn't free to produce, so let's multiply those dollars invested to help this show reach a bigger audience each week. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it. And lastly, if you want more connection, more M Makes Money style riffs, and a safe place on the internet to talk about money, jump into my free Facebook group, The Money Club. It's linked in the show notes. Until next time, I'm wishing you health, happiness, and boatloads of money.